So what did you miss at Jubilee today? Well, you missed a gathering of friends, a sense of community. You you missed some good music, smiling faces, and I guess the last service of the month. You also missed my reflection on the trip that the youth group took. There were 11 of us who went on a 9-day journey to Nova Scotia and back, all the while looking for God. And I talked about it a little today. I talked about it in the light of Luke's gospel, where Luke talks about um, Jesus' parable about the banquet and how one should never sit at a high station, but sit at a lower so that the host might move you up and not humiliate you by moving you down. Or as a host, how you should never invite family and friends and relatives and those who can afford to repay you, but in fact invite strangers and those who could never repay you. There seems to be a sense of what I would call a radical hospitality. And it's a hospitality that most of us don't really, I think, understand. So as I wondered about that, and also the letter to Hebrews, where we're reminded that as we entertain strangers, we might actually be welcoming angels unaware. As I reflected on that and our trip, I remembered various moments of hospitality. The farmhouse in Quebec where a key was left for us that we could get in, and we needed the shelter because it stormed and poured rain that day. And the place to sleep, and a roof, a dry place, a fridge and stove, and room for us to just be together and safe from the storm. And there was a wonderful hospitality in that. I talked about the hospitality we experienced at St. Paul's United Church in Fredericton, where Ricky Boley welcomed us, even though we were, about 4 hours late, and how they offered us wonderful space in which to sleep, in a kitchen that we could cook in, and in fact, Rick even went so far as to catch some bats that might have otherwise disturbed our sleep. And there was a real sense there of joy and welcome. And that was hospitality taken up another level. I talked a little bit about the hospitality we experienced in Wolfville as we were visiting the L'Arche community, the Home Fires community, and the mutuality that we experienced, not just by observing the way that folks at L'Arche live and work together, but the way they welcomed us in and shared their story and honored ours, sought to make us companions. It was beautiful, and it was hospitable, and the focus on gifts and how we all had something to offer community opened our eyes to what hospitality can be and to what we might aspire. I remember particularly one of the assistants, Marie, having spent a year at L'Arche and getting ready to go home, saying that when she had decided to take a year off before university and come from France to Canada to work and live in L'Arche, her friend said to her, "Oh, you are so good, I could never do that." And she told us, "I'm not good. They're just afraid. What I'm doing, anybody can do. You just have to face your fears." And there was something in that about hospitality. And that would have been enough. In fact, we thought it was enough. The trip was over. We were planning our way back. It was a 2-day drive to get back. And along the way, we stopped at a church in Edmundston, St. John and St. Paul, an Anglican and United combined congregation that have been through devastating fire and rebuilt and such a sense of community. And we literally cold called them. We found them because they geographically fit our trip, and we asked if we could stay with them. And when we arrived, road weary, thinking our trip and our learning was over, we were greeted with such hospitality, such an incredible meal laid out for us, and members of the congregation there to gather with us so that we wouldn't be eating alone. We worshiped together. They invited us to lead worship. We worshiped together. They provided us food. They came in early the next morning to make a complete, incredible breakfast for us, and even gave us snacks for the ride in our cars as we went on to the next part of our journey. We had a sense that we were being welcomed so profoundly. It was as if we were giving them a gift by arriving. We gave them a gift, allowing them to love us. And that kind of radical hospitality I had never really experienced before. And it's more than I think that I have ever offered. And I learned. And I realized as I was preaching today that not only is it a hospitality to which we can aspire, but it is the hospitality that God offers us. God's love for us is so profound. It's like we are doing God a favor when we open ourselves up to that love, allow ourselves to be loved so. And knowing that, believing that, we don't have to fight over God's love like it might be conditional or that it might be limited. It's unconditional. It is not limited. Grace continues and grows, and there is enough for everyone. And having experienced it, it was funny. We went on to another church that was very hospitable, and yet somehow it didn't seem enough. It didn't seem the same. Because once you've experienced that kind of radical hospitality, once you've experienced that kind of love, a love that makes you feel that you are offering even more than the one who is caring for you, well, there's no going back. Which is why I know that the kingdom of God is inevitable. At least that's what we talked about today. The kingdom of God is inevitable because once you've experienced that kind of hospitality, that kind of love, nothing else will ever do. So that's what you missed at Jubilee today. But I hope we get to see you soon, and we won't miss much more together. Till we see you. God bless.